Okay, be honest. When was the last time your D&D players were excited by an encounter with wolves? Maybe like the first time that it ever happened? Because I can tell you mine. Literally, in the last session that I just ran, that's kind of why I'm making this video now, my party is walking through an ancient forest of ebonsil trees, dark wood as hard as iron, when suddenly, ahead in the shadows of the underbrush, their scout spots a pair of eyes gleaming in the blackness. He throws up a signal for the others to halt and take cover. Two characters climb trees, one takes cover on the ground, and then the brutish warrior in the party just chucks their spear right at the unknown creature. There's a yelp and howls as the brush stirs, and 6 wolf-like creatures charge forward. But charge is probably not the right word. Long, messy fur, golden eyes, extra long fangs, and almost limp legs as these beasts actually hovered out of the brush toward the party. All my players were surprised. One of them started laughing, but suddenly they were curious, not knowing quite what these beasts were capable of, and all were excited by this otherwise basic and boring random wilderness encounter with a couple wolves. And I'm not making this up. Twice during that session, okay, once during the session, once at the end of the session, one of my players complimented the fantastical monsters that I've been coming up with for this new campaign. As a GM, that feels great, especially knowing that I made up the details for a couple of the monsters in that session on the fly, using some simple random tables and this 2 things method, both of which I will share with you. Because I'm Bob, this is where we learn how to have more fun playing RPGs together, and these fantastical random tables and more can be found in a little supplement I made. Bet you can't tell which video game series it's inspired by. Yes, Scrim. I made this for my Dungeon Crawl Classics campaign, but I guarantee 100% you can use this with D&D, Shadowdark, or any fantasy game that has wolves and owlbears and skeletons and dragons, etc. And for on-the-fly, exciting monsters, this one page is really all you need. Monsters and Mystery. Quote, "If you want your fantasy adventure game to be fantastic, you must remember this. Monsters must be mysterious. This advice comes from the Dungeon Crawl Classics core rulebook, and I put it on this page because I have seen it proven over and over again among my game groups. Never underestimate the power of the unknown. This is where curiosity and the possibility of danger merge together and create this open-minded excitement for the players, no matter how experienced they are or how high level their characters. An unknown monster is exciting." And this stands aside from the typical player-to-character metagame monster topics. Well, would your character know that a troll regenerates unless fire damage? Sure, they've heard stories of that, whatever. But I'm saying that as a beginner adventure, they have almost certainly never seen any live monsters or an accurate depiction of a particular monster, such that they'd even be able to recognize a troll the first time they encounter one. We'll talk about veteran adventurers later, but this first bit of advice for making monsters mysterious applies to any monster that any party is seeing for the first time. In place of standard monster names, rely on descriptions and broad terms. In other words, use other words. Never introduce the troll as the troll. Instead, describe it. This unknown monster is an oversized humanoid, hunched and reeking, gangly limbs, black, beady eyes, and yellow-green flesh sloughing off its body. And if the party continues to observe or interact with it in some way, don't just slip and call it a troll. Call it the monster, and occasionally reference those weird features. Then if your party wants to name it something, that's awesome. Use their name for it in the future. Collaborative world building, it's great. But now, even with that description, experienced players will probably have a good idea of what the monster is in this case. And that's not necessarily a problem. Encountering a troll is probably exciting on its own. However, For players of any experience who just like feeling immersed in the world, this is where we pull in the rule of two things to make any predefined monster feel mysterious or even feel completely new just by adding or adjusting two features. So why two things? Because one feature is not quite weird enough, at least for my DCC game, but three or more features will be almost impossible for the players to remember, and really this applies to anything. NPCs, locations, items, two key descriptive words works. And hopefully this still sounds okay, because here we go. I'm going to try to do this randomly, no script for this next part. I'm going to roll a d12 to pick the list of monster features from this page, and then a d6 to pick the feature off the list, and then I will just come up with some random features to apply to this troll. Basically, this is how I would brainstorm during my game prep, but for fun, then I'll do a second monster totally on the fly, like a random monster, and you see if you can guess what it is. Yeah, I'm just gonna roll this on the ground. 11 and 1 tendrils. So maybe this troll is just covered. This could be, I've been watching Alien and Predator movies a lot lately. Maybe it has those sort of fleshy dreads hanging off of its head. Maybe it has frills like a Western jacket off of all of its limbs. Maybe its arms are just tentacles. And if we make it something like its arms or even an extra long tail, yes, this tendril can be a combat feature, but we don't have to make it something that we're gonna adjust the stat block with. If we want this to be super weird, the troll itself could be more like a jellyfish, and it's like maybe not flying necessarily, but walking on these many, many tendrils beneath it. Already, our troll is a lot less recognizable if we go with that, but let's get one more word, a 6 and a 5, machine. Oh, that's a really cool one for a troll, because again, this is now like a machine that's constantly repairing itself, right? If we take it super literally. This could also be just that it's very mechanized in its movement, that it's very rigid, and I don't know, now I'm thinking of Alien again, maybe even though it does appear as a fully organic creature, when they kill it, it so happens that it is some sort of synthetic, right? And if we want to think of another way to make this more combative, we could have machine be that when this thing attacks you, you're infected with, you know, some kind of nanites from its body that can essentially charm you and turn you into a machine. Also, it's getting windy. I hope you can hear me right now. Okay, Editor Bob here. You could probably hear it, but I really couldn't tell in the moment that yes, the wind was totally blowing out our microphone here. So we're gonna do this random monster on the fly inside. I'll tell you that we're in a grassland. Again, you don't necessarily need to be trying to guess what this thing is, but you're wandering through this field of tall grasses, and you see in the distance this creature flying, kind of coming out of the clouds, making a slow arc around, and as it lands in this field, the first thing you notice about it is, well, it has a quadrupedal kind of outline and multiple heads. The heads actually look different from each other, and that actually could be a giveaway. And the next thing you notice, this was kind of hard to see in the distance as it was landing, but as it hits the ground, it has these huge, elegant whiskers wisping along the sides of it here, still flowing in the breeze, almost blending in with the grassland around it. And as you watch it, you can't shake the feeling that you're being drawn to this creature a little bit. The movement of those whiskers, and even now of its multiple heads and its tail, all waving with the grass in unison in this strange pattern, seems to be taking a strange effect on you in this quick moment. What do? Okay, so that was a somewhat smooth on-the-fly description for a chimera, right? I started with the outline, quadrupedal, multiple heads that look different from each other, who also had the features of whiskers and hypnotize. And I just went with the first things off the top of my head for both. But having more time to think about this one, I would also consider whiskers could be used to sense the environment. Maybe they're sticking straight out, more like antenna or something interesting. Maybe they're used for communication between multiple creatures of this species. And hypnotize could be something really odd, as in the very patterns on this thing's body are hypnotic, or its body itself appears non-Euclidean in some way. Like when you think it's kind of far away, it's able to reach you because you can't tell exactly where this thing is, the way it camouflages hypnotically with the grassland around it. Regardless, it takes us pretty far from a chimera pretty quickly and ends up with a more or less original creature. Nice. Okay, and it is so windy out here, dude. I really hope that sounds okay. Back to the script. Before we talk about these high-level characters who should know a thing or two about monsters, let's talk about players. Some players want everything to come out of an official rulebook, and that's okay. We're already using existing monster stat blocks here and just making a couple tweaks based on these random features, but you could not make any mechanical tweaks and just let these weird features be purely flavorful if it's more fun for your group that way. Honestly, that is mostly how the wolf fight went in my game. I think the only mechanical change was that I let them use their hovering to jump extra high to reach my PCs who climbed into trees but didn't climb up like very high. And for some other players, if they know or realize that a monster or anything is being improvised out of thin air in the moment, it can feel less real and immersive to them. However, I think that perception is kind of flawed, because whether it was improvised a day ago during the GM's prep, or a minute before the session began, or right there in the moment, nothing the GM creates is real or immersive until that moment, when it hits the table anyway. But maybe let me know what you think about that one in the comments. Regardless, I do think the GM should strive and practice to keep their descriptions kind of smooth so the players have a harder time discerning what was prepared and what was purely improvised. This applies to all of Game Mastery, and for what it's worth, you could probably certainly tell just a minute ago that I'm far from perfect at improvising smooth descriptions, especially a couple hours into a game session or on camera. But Bob, what about these high-level adventurers or player characters who, for backstory/lore reasons, should be more knowledgeable about the monsters that exist in this world? In this case, I say keep the weird features and descriptions, but just do more to invite the players into that world building. Aragorndolf, you have faced this type of monster once before. What's it called? Or what's one weakness that it has? Or a strength? Or something cool that you can harvest from its body? Just a fun fact or two from the players to get them more invested and more excited for these cool monsters. And the harvesting part is an easy buy-in for a lot of players. We've been making it up as we go during this campaign, but I'm planning on a video soon where I'll be checking out some rules for harvesting and crafting, and I'll probably make some more videos about this supplement I made, because it does have a bunch more tables for how to set up these encounters, how to flesh out a wilderness setting, and how to distribute some fun loot. But you can check it all out now by picking up the PDF on DriveThruRPG, affiliate link below, and please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it so more people will see it, and consider joining my Patreon, where you can get any supplements that I make a whole month before anyone else. Thank you, and keep building.